Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the famous Noman store. I have the distinct pleasure, the auspicious honor of sitting here with members of the Aaron Sims team. I got Aaron Sims himself sitting here. But first I want to say they are the Visual Effects Society nominee for Outstanding Visual Effects and Photo Reel for Stranger Things. So I applaud you right out of the gate. I want to say that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, way to go. I'm sitting here with, we have Aaron Sims, Jared Kraszewski, who needs no introduction, a former classmate of mine here at the Noman School. We go back way back. We have Stephen Reichstadt. Am I saying that correctly? Reichstadt? Stefan. I'm sorry, Stefan. And Michael Pecchia. Not to be confused with the hockey player Mike Pekka, who is of a whole other, played for the Buffalo Sabres. Paul can appreciate that in the background. Aaron, I know we're pressed for time here as we get late into the evening here in Hollywood. You have a background in practical effects, as people have come to know. You got your start many years ago working alongside some pretty big names. What prompted the move towards developing your own studio?
Creating my own studio, is that the question?
Yeah, what prompted that move
well,
away from?
being in the industry through makeup effects, visual effects, working for Rick Baker, Stan Winston, and many other makeup effects artists, and I just felt like it was a time to go back to kind of what I knew when I first got into the business, was basically just designing. I came out to California to be an illustrator. Got into makeup effects in '85, and loved it. But I saw the change happening with Jurassic Park.
You look good, man. You look good. You're a young looking man.
I'm also a vampire. yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things that, I got to a point where it's like, I saw the change happening. I didn't know exactly where it was going to go. Makeup effects was still happening, but it was slowly being taken over by visual effects. Visual effects was something I had worked on at Stan Winston's for a while, leading his visual effects department, along with, a couple other colleagues there. And it was just a time in the industry where I just felt like, I needed a break, and I was just going to work, on my own. And it was perfect timing because it was a time that actually the studios didn't know where to go. Like if a film came in and there's a script and it said a creature, it's like, oh, geez, is this creature going to be a guy in a suit or is it going to be visual effects? We don't know, but we don't want to go to those places till we actually know, because we may be spending, extra money and then stop it and restart it. And so being a designer and there wasn't that many that were doing it, and having the background, I was able to be that kind of help for the studio to figure out what is that going to be. What is that creature going to be a guy in a suit? Is it going to be visual effects? So shortly, it became, right when I started, it was almost like perfect timing because I was getting jobs and jobs and jobs. They kept coming in and there were bigger jobs and bigger jobs, very high profile ones. And so then that's when I started to form a company and started to hire artists. And Stefan was one of the first artists that I hired. It was, I think it was 2008 is when you came on. Yeah.
You can take the mic too. Yeah, you can speak into the microphone.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. It was '08, so we're almost 10 years on now. Yeah. And so we've been doing this for a while now. But it's funny because one thing I remember about Aaron, the reason why he moved on and did his own thing, is to his point where he was really in depth in 3D and digital. The time where everybody was still really practical, Aaron really led that forefront himself. And I think that's something, while he still has that really practical background, that painting background, that's something that we've kind of carried through the entire shop, is everybody knows the original way of doing things, painting and sculpting, traditional art, but then is encouraged to learn everything they can, every new program that comes out, as much as they can, because that's kind of the way that he taught himself how to do these things. But yeah.
Going back to you for 1 second on that, in that regard, rather, you came out here. You said, where'd you come from?
Oh, came from Dallas, Texas.
Okay, there you go, home of the Stars. I'm a big hockey fan. Maybe
I
haven't figured that out yet.
Stefan is from Texas too.
Oh,
I am also from Texas.
Yeah.
Here we are. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, from one Texan to another, and I haven't met a Texan I don't like yet. So this is a present company included. Here we go.
There's a lot of them.
So in that regard, for people watching around the world, as I mentioned, we're being broadcast live to a huge audience. What kind of hurdles or obstacles come to mind when looking back over the long, storied history at this point of the Aaron Sims Company? What sorts of things did you have to overcome in the early days, other than people not understanding this guy from Texas with this, new stuff, this new digital stuff?
Well, the obstacles, happen like anything else in the industry that you can't predict, like, strikes. There's I think it was right around the time that you had started, there was a writer's strike, and it pretty much shut us down for a while. One, we were just starting off, and it was very difficult for us to really brand ourselves that early. So what we've done since, obviously, is been able to brand ourselves, get our name out there, kind of. Luckily, been able to work on some incredible projects, incredible filmmakers, and so I think that the obstacles really were about making sure that we could stay alive during those times. Mm-hmm. So we found other places to where it kind of stabilized us, getting into other components that may not need a script at the time. Sometimes sometimes it's a video game that comes to us and we design. So we're doing that kind of stuff. We got into previs, and then visual effects, which is something that kind of full circle to back to visual effects is where we're at right now. So we're kind of one of those shops right now that we try to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like a lot of overlap and interconnectivity between the parts and pieces. And Michael can speak to this as well, not to interject, but you have the background. Let's take that microphone. Michael Pecchia, ladies and gentlemen.
Really understanding the high and lows, and Aaron's done a great job of understanding what they are. And that was the reason in the last 2 years we really pushed to visual effects, was to really fill those gaps. When design was down, visual effects will be busy. When visual effects is down, our design pipeline's going. We've even designed for a sports bar this year, which was really interesting. Totally not our spectrum, but it's art, right? And it's design.
Absolutely.
So our guys were able to tackle that job.
And I like to say that to students as well. Jared and I have the distinction of being teachers here at the Noman School of Visual Effects. The distinction in one way or the other should never be made that one skill set is supposed to be aligned with one kind of output. I think that the more fluid a person can see themselves being, the more robust their career opportunities become.
It is so important to be well-rounded, but to be flexible. Sometimes we had animators and we had a downtime, and we tasked them with other visual effects tasks at that moment, because we said, we want to keep everybody, right, but we don't have any animation. Can you help out the comp guys? And it's so important for artists to know is to be flexible when they start their job, especially right out of school. We're looking for people that are flexible, that can jump in, and it's the energy, it's the enthusiasm of how they can be part of that team.
And I think you mentioned earlier you had a background that was artistically driven as well, and you transitioned into business management for all intents and purposes.
Traditionally, I was a compositor, so I was taking what all these guys were creating and marrying it with the live action plate. And for me, I saw over the last 7 years, I wanted to move up to management. How can I take my background from compositing and help with that? I understand the breakdowns a lot better than somebody who just was a producer.
Right.
So when I'm talking to a client, I can explain the process a little better than someone who was just a traditional producer.
Yeah, that's fantastic insight. I think it's something that doesn't get spoken about very often, but I think this is, again, a golden opportunity for the people watching at home and here in the audience to get that kind of information from you fellas. Jared Krzyzewski is a product of the Noman School of Visual Effects, now a teacher, as I mentioned. How does it feel to be sitting here finally under the warm lights with me inside the world-famous Noman School of Visual Effects?
Well, the lights are very warm.
You're a long way from the Borders bookstore we know so much
about.
Man.
Yeah. It's crazy because, funny story about that is I was at Borders working a kind of dead-end retail job.
Just a regular guy who learned the tools.
Yeah, and I kept coming across these digital art masters books, and I kept going back to them again and again. I was like, I got to learn how to do this. And what was the clincher was all the managers were all excited because corporate was coming into our store, and I overheard one of the corporate executives say, "Oh, people will never buy books online." And I went, "Oh, I got to get out of here." I got to get out of here. So I actually asked my cousin, who was working in video games, tell me where to go. And he put together a list of places, and Noman stood out to me like right away. So The fact, so their website was killer. I went to the campus.
Yeah,
the
you
campus,
could say that again.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's how I found out. Word of mouth on the street in Toronto.
Yeah, and then just being here just blew me away. So I was like, this is, and then I was surrounded by people who were dedicated. They were creative. They liked technical challenges as well. So it was definitely one of those like, this is the place for me. And I feel like a lot of people who have come here and come through here, they all feel the same way. It's home for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a home base for myself included. And to your point earlier about just sort of feeling that there was a change coming.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I was introduced to ZBrush in the first place. It was, like I said, in Toronto, I bumped into a friend, Jerry Figursi, wherever you are, somewhere in New York. My hat is always tipped to you. He said, you ought to try the Gnomon School. So just like you, I went online, I checked out the Gnomon School, saw the designs, and then was introduced to ZBrush in a basement by a friend of mine's husband, and he was working on Avatar at the time and had come home from New Zealand. And I said, whatever that is, that's the future of design.
Yeah.
And I washed my hands of whatever it was I was doing. I think I was working for a major bank at the time. And I just said, wherever that is, I'm going to be there. And I ended up in a sculpting studio with this guy, learning traditional methods. And we've come a long way from sleeping on the floor.
I know, man. Yeah. Couch surfing.
They've established here.
You take that. Yeah, sorry.
The program that Gnomon's established here really puts the student, lets them understand what production really is.
Absolutely.
And you can't emphasize that enough, because once they hit the office, the long hours, the long days, changes back and forth, that's a reality when you're in the office.
Absolutely.
And Gnomon really established it. And I think it was Alex's real plan, was having working artists teach the school from the beginning. And so the students really got an understanding of what production was, and those teachers were going to be able to translate that over to them so they could understand it. And I think he was really successful with that.
Oh, me too, absolutely. We're, again, two of us are byproducts of that environment, and the level of excellence from all of our colleagues and associated friends in the industry is, at the highest of levels. And my work ethic as well is a derivative of that kind of process. It's like people ask me, now I'm working 70 hours a week. This is just a norm. It's just something that we were sort of indoctrinated into. You say, well, there's hours in a week, we might as well just make use of them.
And it's the passion. The passion will get
absolutely.
you through those long weeks.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the passion, those people will fall away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's more than, again, a relevant statement to be making. Dealing with everyone can answer this one, or anybody. And you can take the mic if you like at the forefront. Dealing with well-established brands like Spider-Man and others has its challenges. Do you have any key moments where your designs were not approved? And this is a hairy question. And you felt like, hey, that's a good design. These people are crazy.
They love all of them all the time.
Yeah, they love them all.
They loved them all the time.
Yeah, they couldn't make a decision. That was the thing. So it's a coin toss. No, there's I think I had mentioned in there before, like when I worked on The Incredible Hulk, that was over a year. It was myself. I did so many variations, and when you're doing these iconic characters that are so well known, you have to be sensitive to the fans. You also have to be sensitive of what you're trying to create, which is a film. It's an entertainment. It's got to be. So there's a lot of elements that go through it. So certain designs that we may think is amazing and fits what we were told that this is what's going to be in the film, and then it changes because of other aspects. That's just kind of the nature of the business, and you kind of get used to it. You can't be disappointed and that your design didn't get chosen or something like that if that happens, because we're basically working for the studio to make sure that they're happy with the product, but for our job is to make sure that they are happy. And
Absolutely.
And we do as many variations and iterations on any of the characters we're working on to make sure that we're hitting every note, and hopefully some of those details that we see come through on the screen, and everybody appreciates it.
Yeah, I think the body of work is tremendous. You want to add to
Well,
this?
and then as well, I mean, the important thing to remember is that it's collaborative. So it's not just you designing in a bubble with the director. There's the costume designer, the producer, the visual effects team, the visual effects soup. All these different people are all striving towards the end, towards the goal of making something that's good. And oftentimes, sometimes we'll design something and they say, oh, actually, yeah, no, it's going to be a guy in a suit. So because of that, we have to pull back this and make sure that this can function on set. Or it can't have hair because that'll just be too expensive to do in the end. There's all kinds of, not limitations, but things that you have to think about while you're designing and while you're executing visual effects in the end, because it has to work for everybody. It can't just work for you or just work for the director.
Yeah, well stated. I think that's, go ahead, Michael.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
One of the other things too is everyone forgets everyone's an artist, right? And that passion is always there. And that passion can flare up when a client does not like something. And it's interesting that you actually have to learn when to put it in check and realize we're at a job and the job has to get done and finished on time, but still keep that passion of your artistry flowing. It's definitely a fine line, and through the years I've seen artists get really angry and frustrated, and you're reminding them, we're actually a vendor or a client, and we have to hit their notes. And yes, they want it 50 times or 100 versions or whatnot. So it's interesting watching a young artist learn that process of, they'll be adamant, it's my art, and it's like, well, we have a client, we have to hit those notes, and we got to do 100 versions. So them really learning that process is an interesting growth stage for them when they enter the workforce.
I'd like to join in on that just for 1 second here and mention, you say process, and I was just thinking that before you said it. It's actually the process that I would say people should be in love with, and not the end result. It's the process that is what you're doing, and the end result is that's not really ours. We're just handing it off to someone else, but that process is yours.
Well, and
you still own it.
And that was the thing, as I was going to say. Sometimes you do just nail the design, and everybody loves it, and it's awesome.
All the time.
And then sometimes what happens is you nail it, and then somebody comes in with a note, and you go, "Ooh, actually, that is a really good note. I didn't even think about that. That changes this whole thing. All of a sudden, this is a totally unique, better process because of the feedback that you get from the client, from the producers, from the directors, from the writers, the whole team."
Yeah, I think there's an elasticity to that, and remaining elastic is probably the best way to move forward and keeping everybody happy and satisfied. I think that's definitely worth mention. I wanted to say, Stefan, to you have a background in fine art and oil painting. Who are some of your influences as we go deeper into the conversation of getting to know you?
Well, one that gets tossed around a lot in the office that we still look at is Beksinski.
Okay.
We are all, actually that design style, that design sense actually still comes back into the art of the artists in the entire shop as a whole. But as a personal painter, when I was just working with oils and acrylics and a big canvas, I actually really liked Basquiat and that kind of stuff. Something that really expressive, really big motion kind of stuff. But it's
Basquiat
funny.
now leaving the stratosphere, by the way, as of late.
Yeah, but that's the impressive thing in a weird way, is that some of these things that you learn for your personal art that you do, when you're in high school and college and when you first come out, really come back to make a big difference in the art that we do as professionals. Like I said, the whole Beksinski thing, let's just focus on that one for a second. I think there's a visual effects shot that we're doing right now where that's the main heavy reference, that we're saying, oh, this is actually a really cool idea for the way that things kind of string together, and it feels organic and kind of nasty. And it's funny how all of those things, all that classical training comes back every single day.
Okay, that's, again, very insightful. I'm very fortunate to be here. Back to Jared for 1 second. I know that this is a big point of reference for you. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles gig was a big one. It's a treat to see those designs in action figure form. I'd like to say that walking through the toy store and seeing that and thinking of you is a happy moment for me. What are your feelings on seeing the work translated not only into film but collectibles as well as we move into the topic of 3D?
Oh,
3D
dude, I bought every toy.
I bet you.
I bought every toy.
I think I saw your post on social media. It said I just spent a bunch of money.
I bought every single one of them, and and then seeing like fan art that other people would do of those designs.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing. It reached somewhere else. It reached the fans, and that they wanted to do their own thing with it as well. It was really cool. So seeing other artists do it in their style was really inspiring to me. I'm like, oh, they did it better. So it was really it was awesome. And seeing toys and collectibles and other stuff come out, man, that's why you did it, you do it not just to see them on screen, but to collect the toys afterwards,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's a big part of it. I mean, and especially because I collected all the toys, so now I have this collection of turtles from all different generations, including, you know, the small thumbprint that I put on it. So, I mean, it's just awesome.
Yeah,
you
which
know,
that's why I wanted to ask you about that. I want to get that out into the ether of the universe and all the people at home watching around the globe. You know, the other thing I'd like to talk about is this sketch-to-screen educational opportunity. Maybe you want to take the reins on this one. Well, whoever, it doesn't really matter. Now, as a full-time educator myself, having stepped away from Pixelogic from a full-time basis and going into education for technology and art and design across the district, Glendale, and also at the Cal State University of Northridge as a professor, and here with you, I feel that there is a tremendous opportunity to engage with younger people and give them sort of more insight and information. Is this the aim of the learning opportunity that's forthcoming?
Yeah, you know, Sketch to Screen, I mean, for the class that we're giving is to help, it's something that is difficult to do in a school setting.
Right.
What we do is we kind of show artists basically what they should expect when they're actually thinking about you know, creating, if they're going to get into film or TV or anything like that, what's really going to be the hurdles, and then what are the obstacles, and how do you overcome those, you know. So we have to deal with that all the time. There's an entire pipeline that goes through that, you know, from, you know, the entire like essence of the idea all the way to the final product, and with that becomes all these different things that you have to consider while you're doing it. We're not, ours is not to teach the software.
Right.
That's not what we're actually doing. It's basically our method of how we actually work as a company.
It's process-driven.
Yes, it's a process-driven education, which is something that, you know, that's what we feel is important. One, it's to help others. The others is because we're always looking for talent. So it's great to be able to educate
Yeah, that was my
people
next point.
and give them an opportunity to, if they do want to come work at ASC or another company like ours, that they actually have the proper tools to be able to do that.
Right. So you are seeing this as a bigger opportunity or with a longer scope or vision where perhaps recruitment is concerned.
Yeah, there is that opportunity as well.
Okay, absolutely wonderful. I'm being given the slice dice hand from the gods here. I want to say on behalf of myself, Louie Tucci, everybody here at the Pixelogic Summit, I want to thank everybody from the Aaron Sims Company, all the men and women who work behind the scenes as well, who can't be here on screen today. Thank you for your contribution to everything cool that we do, and you know, especially these four gentlemen. Thanks again for sitting with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Michael. It was my pleasure to meet you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.